Okay, I am going to burn some Palo Santo. I've decided to do some tarot readings this afternoon. Welcome, welcome everyone. Hi, Anne's Human. You'll be my first on the list today. Welcome to anyone who might be joining. My name is Will, and I'm doing some free live tarot readings today, probably just for about an hour or so. I'm using the CBD Tarot de Marseille by the late Dr. Yoav Ben-Dov. I've got a cup of coffee. I've got my candle lit. I burned some Palo Santo. Let me write down my list. Anne's Human, Ascending Universal Butterfly will be number 2. All right. And then we'll see if other folks show up. So we're starting with Anne's Human. If you have a specific question you'd like to ask, go ahead and pop that in the chat, please. Okay, so Anne's Human's question is, what does Hecate want to tell me about someone coming in towards me or love life? So I'm going to assume that you're single based on the context of the question. Let's pull some cards and see what we get for Anne's Human. Okay, first card down. Six of batons, or rods, or crooks, or staffs, or wands, depending on who you ask. So I tend to think of the sixes in terms of paths, like something that you've been working on. It's not new, you've been doing it for a while. And six is a number of harmony. And so it can often mean that you're like harvesting or reaping the rewards of something that you've been doing for a while with the batons or rods. I think of building things, working on things, putting effort into things. Second card down is Five of Cups. So here with the 5, I would think of some instability or maybe even a little bit of chaos regarding emotions or uh, whatever makes you happy, right? So we'll lay a third card in a moment, but the first 2 cards down sort of tell a little story that the effort that you've been putting in perhaps towards relationships, given that that's the context of the question, has maybe not paid off quite as much as you'd hoped, right? Like your ambitions towards having relationships have not gone entirely unfulfilled. But if we just look at the numbers 6 and 5, you're putting in a little more effort than what you're getting back would be a way of reading that, which might make you feel a little disappointed. Third card down is the Pope, known as the Hierophant in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And we're going to pull another card because I need to know what this figure is looking at. Uh, in fact, I'll just pull it now before I even read the Pope card. Okay. So, the Pope figure is someone who can offer advice, who you go to ask for a blessing, who you go to get some information about like what works for everybody else and so what should I do also. The Because the Pope is about tradition and passing along tradition, so therefore it can also be about learning and education. And so it's sort of giving a sense, especially with the movement from 6 to 2 batons, because we see, well, if we were to say like, what advice is this figure giving you? And it's sort of saying like, focus down where you're putting your efforts from 6 down to 2, if that makes any sense. Uh, So it's almost like the effort that you're putting in is not yielding quite as much rewards as you'd hoped. And so the advice the Pope is giving is like ease up on it a little bit. Like, don't put so much pressure on yourself that, like, I don't know, but if you feel like, well, gosh, I really should be in a relationship. Uh, Maybe not, right? Like, maybe let it happen more naturally. Wait for someone to cross your path. I always think with the 2 of batons, it's like a crossroads, right? Like 2 different paths, and they cross for a moment, and so at their intersection, it could be that 2 people meet, right? But the paths don't necessarily cross just because you put more effort into it, right? Like if they're going to cross, maybe they're just going to cross no matter what happens and they pair up with one another. Uh, and so this spread, I would say overall, is like don't beat yourself up if you're putting in a lot of self-imposed pressure. Um, Maybe just ease up on it a little bit. Sometimes when you're not actively searching for something, that's when suddenly it just falls in your lap. So that might be something to consider as well. Um, the other thing I'd say is anytime I see this Pope card, uh, I always, I always, and this is maybe my own personal reading more than how others might do it, but I always challenge the Pope a little bit. I'm not particularly myself interested in dogma or doing things the way that others have done them only because it's the way others have done them. If it makes sense to do things in traditional ways, then that's fine. But I'm always wary of following a tradition blindly, right? And so that's the other thing I would think here with the Pope is like maybe consider forming your own tradition, right? Like finding your own beliefs and practices related to relationships instead of feeling like, oh, well, like all my siblings are married and I'm not, so something's wrong with me. No, right? Just because other people have done things a certain way doesn't mean that that's how you need to be doing things. So that's the message I think that I'd offer here is like ease up a little bit on the pressure because the extra pressure that you're adding is it seems here sort of just making things unstable, like making you a little disappointed, and maybe meditate a bit on how finding a tradition that is unique to you could be more fulfilling than trying to make your life pattern fit other people's life patterns just because there's societal pressure to do so. All right. Let me look at the chat here. Sunshine pattern, welcome. My name's Will. I'm doing some free readings today. B, welcome. I'm adding you to the list. Okay, so Hans Human, do you have any follow-up questions about this spread? If you do, feel free to post them. Otherwise, the next person on my list here is Ascending Universal Butterfly. And then we have Sunshine Pattern and then B. You're welcome, Ans Human. I would just say, like, there's no reason to be upset about any of these cards. If anything, it's almost telling you to relax a little bit, right? Like, um, I always think of the baton suit is about work, pressure, effort, um, that pays off usually. Uh, but ease up on it. 6 to 2. What about Bob? Oh, did I miss you, Bob? Let's see. Oh, okay. All right, Bob, I saw you in there. So I'll put Bob right. In checking the chat again, I see Bob is after Ascending Universal Butterfly. So next I'm doing Ascending, then Bob, then Sunshine, then B. Okay. So Ascending just wanted a general reading, if I remember correctly. And so for the general reading, what I'll do is shuffle, cut, look at both cards at the bottom of each half of the cut deck, use those two cards to give me a sense of the issue, and then I'll pull 3 cards to describe or flesh out the issue that comes up. I love how nice you all are being to each other in the chat. I really appreciate that. I like there's good vibes in the chat there. That's great. Good job. Okay, so these cards are for Universal Ascending Butterfly, and we're going to just do a general reading. We're going to see whatever comes up, comes up. All right, so let's flip both halves of the deck up. Okay, so the issue coming up, which we will pull cards in to address, pull cards on to address, is described in terms of 5 swords and the star. And so 5 swords, I would say, has to do with some chaos regarding a conflict, some kind of conflict that you're having with others, maybe within yourself, although I tend to think it has to do with another person or people. Uh, and I would read the star here as like you feel like you are a little vulnerable, like maybe you don't have the defenses that you need as you're looking at this conflict, and it's you have a sense of hope. We always think of hope with the star card, and yet you're looking at the chaos before you and maybe wondering, like, how do I navigate this? The star is a person who is very open and giving. They have faith. They're inspiring. They're generous. Uh, but they are also not wearing any armor or anything at all, which means that other people can more easily get under their skin, so to speak. Okay. And so this figure on the star card, looking at all of these sharp, pointy swords, might be wondering, boy, am I going to get hurt in this situation? Okay. So let's pull some cards. We'll pull from here where I'd cut and see what kind of story we can tell uh, about these 5 swords and the star. So the first thing that comes up is 4 coins, which would be a sense of stability, things staying the same, like no change happening, but perhaps due to uh, a certain kind of closed offness or defensiveness that I suspect is more in the past. Since this is the first card down, I'm more inclined to think that this is what's like passing out of the situation, like being released, right? And so it's 4 uh, coins, which are stability, but the stability comes because of the shield, right? The putting up of defenses. And the star, of course, has nothing like a shield. She doesn't even have clothing. And then we have the Queen of Swords. This is a person who understands very well conflict, how to protect, and also, when necessary, how to fight. And she's or he, right? The gender is it doesn't matter to me as far as the way I read the cards. Uh, the figure on the card, the queen, is looking at this stable situation that is stable because someone has their defenses up, right? Or even a group has their defenses up. And I can't help but look at the way the sword and the shield, it's like there's a part of you perhaps which wants to fight and put the defenses down or break through or fight through the defenses. But you know also that in doing that, the situation will no longer be stable because the only thing keeping things stable is the shield. And so that can be kind of scary, right? Because sometimes um, closing off one's self in order to not stir the pot and keep things stable sometimes is useful, but it's unlikely that any growth can come from that situation. And growth, unfortunately, tends to be uncomfortable because you have to be vulnerable. Let's pull another card. 6 batons. And so this is sort of what is coming towards you now, or what you have the opportunity to embrace. And it's batons and the 6, which makes me think of collaborating with others, like working with others. And so the first 2 cards sort of tell a little um, story about a little like a conflict, right? Uh, in which things become more chaotic or unstable than they were prior to that conflict. But the result, what comes out, is not bad, right? Like it's almost like the conflict is necessary in order for things to move along and move forward. And the way they move forward is that the different parties involved in the situation, whoever they might be, um, set forth and work together in order to like get the ball rolling again, right? Like to continue to work on or build the relationship. That might be a way of putting it, right? So to sort of tie these together, I'd say that there's a sense of needing to be vulnerable in the face of chaos and conflict, which can be uncomfortable, and feeling like stirring things up. We might think of like telling it like it is. The Queen of Swords never lies. she she is truthful to a fault, even to the point that she might say something to someone that is objectively true, but that might hurt them. And she's not trying to hurt them. She's just trying to say what's true, right? And that can sometimes sort of get her into a little bit of trouble. But she's never lying. She's never deliberately, anyways, saying things that she knows to be inaccurate or untrue. And so, in using her sword to sort of get at this situation where things are stable, but only through a lack of change, a lack of vulnerability, we might say. The results that what comes out of this is good, right? Or mostly good. There's still some effort that needs to be put into whatever this relationship is. I always think of effort with the batons, but but it's promising, right? Like it's likely to actually lead somewhere, assuming that you and the other party, whoever they might be, are both willing to contribute to building, to putting in effort and energy into the relationship, right? So that's kind of what I see here is like being vulnerable, engaging in conflict with one another, so that you can then work on improving the relationship or the situation after that conflict is over. Yeah. Okay, so let me take a look at the chat here. Please don't spam the chat, folks. If you do, I will put you in timeout. Um, you're welcome to ask to be added to the list, and you're welcome to post your question. But if you're spamming, I'm gonna put you in timeout. Okay, so let's see. What have we got here? Diran, hi. Welcome. Okay, so ascending, do you have any questions about this spread? Is there anything I can repeat or look at again? I'd be happy to do that. Otherwise, the next person on my list is indeed Bob Hope. And welcome to anyone who might be joining. My name is Will, and I'm doing some free live tarot readings today. If you're interested, you can check the description of the video or the first message in the chat, which I'm going to pin. I realize I haven't pinned it. There it is pinned, to see how to be added to the list. And if I don't get to you today, I'd be happy to read for you at another time. But I've got a little bit of a list going here. Let's see. So okay, Bob Hope is asking about love and money. Okay, let's see what we get here. Okay, first card down. Queen of Coins. And so this is someone who understands what they value and has achieved something related to it. And so, you asked about love and money. Coins, I tend to think of as money, but it can be anything that's like a treasure to you that you treasure. The hermit is someone who is seeking to understand their situation more clearly. This is a very interesting spread because we have three human figures, and they're all facing to the left, which I generally think of in terms of the past, right? Because being a native English speaker, I read from left to right. And so, um, my cultural learning, conditioning, causes me to think that left is past and right is future. And that's generally how I tend to read the cards. I'm going to lay another card in a moment because I want to see what is coming over here on the far left because the queen is facing to the left. But there's a clear progression here of um, thinking that you know what you value, right? Believing at a certain moment in time that you have a clear understanding of what is important to you, but then going off on maybe a little quest, metaphorically speaking, as the hermit is wont to do. And you see how the coin representing one's treasure turns into a lantern, which is now seeking to shine light on something else. So I wonder if there's a way in which something that you found important, valuable, uh, has sort of been called into question in some way. And now, rather than being the queen, you find you've turned into the page who doesn't totally know what it is they value, isn't entirely certain what is important to them. And so they're back to a stage of learning and exploring and trying to figure out, hey, what do I actually care about? Right? So let's lay one more card down. Okay. And it's the Eight of Swords. And so, Eight of Swords, if we read this just in terms of yourself, as opposed to you in relation with other people, then the Eight of Swords is sort of thoughts, troubling thoughts that might prevent you from advancing, like feeling a little bit stuck regarding something. It could also have to do, the Eight of Swords, with a group of people, like the atmosphere or community or group of people around you, if it's not related exclusively to just your own individual self. And you'd have to sort of figure out which valence of that card might make more sense in your own individual case and context. But while at one time you felt more secure in your understanding of what's important to you, either the atmosphere of people around you or troubling, conflicting thoughts that you have about it pushed you to, or are currently pushing you to seek out, explore, um, shine a light in the dark corners of your life to see if there might be something more or something else there. And the embracing current here is one of continuing to learn and figure out what it is you care about, right? And so now I feel that it's important to go back to your question, which was about sort of, your question was just like fairly general about uh, like, is there money and love coming towards me? And the cards on the table, I think, are sort of trying to encourage you to put your question into question, if that makes sense. Like to, it's giving you a little push to say like, um, i- is are love and money the things that will really make you happy, right? And of course, to some extent, I think for all people, it's probably yes, right? But the cards are almost suggesting like, can you go further or can you go deeper, right? Um, it is nice to see when I get a question about money, lots of coins cards, and that is what we see, right? And okay, so even the key card or surprise card at the bottom of the deck is another coin, right? And so if I was going to sort of just answer your question really straightforwardly, like I would say I don't see anything in the spread specifically about love or the beginning of a relationship, but regarding money, three of the five cards here are coins cards, and that says some financial situation coming towards you. Although I will say that if we're strictly speaking about money and not metaphorically about values, then the movement of the queen to the page, do you see that the coin does shrink a little bit? And I do think it's a joke, but not that size matters in the tarot. And so, like this bigger coin gets a little bit smaller as time passes, as the value slightly shrinks. Though there is another one at the page's feet, but it's not at all clear that the page knows that it's there. Right. So, like, is there money in this situation? Yes. There may be some shrinking of value to it, but there is another coin at your feet. You just have to know where to look for it. And of course, here, this is the largest coin in the deck, is the ace, right? And so this this card is sort of, we would treat this card at the bottom of the deck as like a hint for how to read all the other cards. It's like the key to unlocking them, right? And so, um, on the one hand, speaking sort of metaphorically, it's calling into question like, what do you really value, right? And on the other hand, if we want to think about this more concretely and literally, we could say um, there might be a contraction, very very slight contraction of your financial resources, but there is an opportunity to pick up a little more cash, so to speak. You just have to figure out how to find it, because it's sort of like it's there, but you're so focused on this other coin that you're not necessarily seeing it, right? So there's sort of a double valence to this spread that comes out depending on whether we want to lean on it in a more metaphorical or self growth or psychological or spiritual way, versus if we want to think about it really in response to the question you asked, which is like, uh, hey, is there money? And I've sort of tried to answer both of those, right? To put it in a sentence or two, um, it might benefit you to meditate or learn or focus a little more on what you truly value. On the one hand, that's the metaphorical reading. The more concrete reading is um, get creative about learning and being open to alternative ways to bring in the money that you're after, right? Because the page is um, still trying to figure things out, and so makes mistakes and then learns from those mistakes and progresses, right? Um, the page is the squire who hasn't become a knight yet. The queen is the queen is confident that she understands what matters here or how she gets her money, right? And the progression then from queen to page is like, don't be too overly confident. Don't like sit on your throne and wait for the money to come in. The cards are saying you actually need to be more like the page, explore, learn, figure out, look in unexpected places to bring in the money. Okay, let me look at the chat here. And Ari is here. Hello, Ari. I'll add you to the list. All right. And so I've just wrapped up Bob's reading. And so here's the current list. We've got Sunshine Pattern is next, if Sunshine is here, and then B. And then I don't know if Diren requested a reading, but Diren was here. And so if Diren's here, I'll read for them. And then Ari. That's my remaining list. Sunshine, B, Diren, Ari. So, Sunshine, if you are here and haven't already posted your question, you can go ahead and throw that in the chat. Yes, Ari is after Diren, if Diren's here. And right now we're doing Sunshine Pattern, if Sunshine Pattern is here. And if Sunshine is not here, then B is next. Okay, so I haven't heard from Sunshine, and B posted their question, so I'm going to read for B. And B asks, how does G feel about me calling him yesterday? I don't know how he feels and how he'll respond. Okay, so is this, just because I'm curious, is this someone you have dated or want to date, or is it just a friend? Okay, no contact, want to reconcile. Okay, so like an ex. Okay, so what I'm hearing is you called your ex yesterday, yesterday, and you want to know how he feels about you. Okay. No, no need to apologize. I think it's good to sort of have like a little back and forth conversation like this, just because the more context I have, I feel like the more accurate I can get with my answers. Because each of these cards can be read in so many different ways, and then when you put several of them on the table, I just find that I can get a less vague answer, if I understand more about the context. Thank you. I appreciate that, B. Okay, those are shuffled, so Okay, let's start with 3 cards and see where that takes us. First card down is the King of Swords. Okay. So the King of Swords is someone who has the power to create conflicts and also put an end to conflicts. They are very interested in protecting their kingdom, so to speak, and they will fiercely protect it against anything that they think might be um, troubling to it. And so, uh, even to the point of like limiting freedoms or doing things that are unpleasant or uncomfortable. The King of Swords is like, sometimes I think of the King of Swords as almost like a dictator, right? Who will like take away your freedom of speech and say that they're doing it for your own good, right? So this is the first card we have up, King of Swords. Mm. And then we've got the Emperor. And the thing about the Emperor is that within the tarot deck, the way that I think of it is that the Emperor is sort of ranks a little bit above the kings, right? Because there's only one emperor. There's 4 kings in the deck, and so the emperor controls the whole empire, and the king just controls their individual kingdom, which might be vast and wealthy. But the emperor, at the end of the day, controls all of the kingdoms, right? And so what I see here with these first 2 cards is 2 personalities who are both incredibly strong and incredibly invested in the stability and strength and structure of their own domicile, but who are sort of in conflict regarding like who is in charge of what and when. And so getting the two of it's like both of these people are vying for power, and getting the two of them to reconcile would be very tricky, right? Neither of these people is interested in giving up any kind of power, so to speak. And so, one of them has their sword raised, ready to strike. The other has got their scepter raised. And so it's not a weapon, but it's the kind of thing they can use to make proclamations that would like levy a tax or, like um, uh, change the shape of borders of nations or great things like that. And they've also got the shield down here, which they can use to defend themselves against any attacks. And so like both of these people are like in fight mode, in conflict mode would be a way to put it. Um, let's lay another card. Okay. So 10 batons is what comes up. So the way I would sort of read this left to right is these 2 people who I have just described, these 2 personalities are very much um, facing conflict between them, and the result of that, it's like these 2 cards added together equal this, which is 10 batons. And so 10 batons is there's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of effort that has been put in between the 2 of them to work on something, to build something, to create something. And tens, though, can sometimes mean too much, but they can also mean like an ending, like a completion. Like, if the 1 is the beginning, the ace is the beginning, and then the 10 is the end, right? The 9 is where you sort of attain the thing, and the 10 is like, okay, we've done everything we can do here. And now um, we've finished, right? So tens can signal an end to something. Uh, And so, like, one way of reading this, again, to go back to your question, is because you asked, what does he think? Right. And so, to put it in terms of how you phrase the question, m- I think he thinks that he's already put in as much effort as he can and feels like things are completed. That might be a way of putting it, because it's almost like the two personalities are, um, in some sense, they're well suited, and that they both are interested in power. Let's put it that way, control, right? Um, kind of being in charge, right? Um, and so in that sense, they're almost like too similar, right? Like, because in order for this to work, if they both want power, one of them would have to sort of give it up, or they would need to change their aspirations. And so, um, you ask in the chat, could it also signify an end of no contact? Um, I mean, I do think that seeing the two figures looking at each other, as I think you're noting, it does suggest that they are in contact, right? Like, are these figures in contact? Yeah, they're looking right at each other. It's just that they both have their tools of power raised, right? It's not as though we have these two figures and between them is the two of cups or something, right? Where it's like, even though they have their weapons raised, or their tools of power raised, what connects them is a, a loving partnership, right? We don't see something like that. It's almost like, because there's nothing between them, it's just them. It's almost like the conflict, um, is perpetuates because there's nothing mediating between them. There's no reconciliation happening, and that's leading to a feeling of like, well, we've done what we can do. Like, we've woven as many of these sticks together as the tarot deck has to offer. There's 10, and we can't get more than 10 on any one card. And so it's like, a sense of completeness, right? Um, and so, just to reiterate this, I'm thinking about this in terms of what the cards are saying this other person is thinking, which isn't a prediction of the future and has nothing to do with what you're necessarily thinking, but maybe would give you some more ideas about, um, what is going on with the situation, right? If we want to, we could look at the key card. And so the key card's the Fool. And, I would read that as, I read cards, or I try to make a habit of reading the cards in terms of their function. Like, what is the figure doing, right? And so the King of Swords is, um, preparing for conflict, right? They've got their sword up. The Emperor is trying to maintain power. Batons, their function is to build something. The Fool is walking forward, like um, walking off. And so, um, to put it like bluntly, maybe he feels like he's been kind of foolish, um, and like he wants to, go off on a new journey. That might be a way to put it. Okay, you're welcome. You're very welcome. let me look at the chat here. And let's see. So I believe Deeran, I don't know that Deeran even requested a reading, but if Deeran is here and wants a reading, I am open to that. And if not, then Ari is next. Okay, so Deeran and Ari. Hi, Mark. And welcome to anyone who might be joining. My name is Will, and I've been doing some free live tarot readings today. Mark says, I did a reading for Mark the other day, last week, I think it was, about selling his bike, motorcycle, I think, was it? And the devil came up, I think. And I was like, don't do that. And Mark says that he tried to play him. Yeah. Oh, and Mark or Bob, if you're asking the number next to your like handle, I think it's a new thing. It's top fans, I think. And it's a new thing that YouTube is using that I don't totally know a ton about, but I think it has to do with like how much you engage in the chat and maybe in the channel in general. And so then like the top 1, 2, and 3 get like a little flare. It's kind of new, or at least new to me. Yeah, there's like experience points. So like different people have different experience points based on the way that they've engaged with the channel. And maybe how recently. I'm not exactly sure how it's calculated. I have no control over it. It's all automated. It just tells me like what it tells me, but I don't. Or if I can control it, I'm not aware of that. Right? I'm not particularly tech savvy. Everyone, I'm good with cards and paper. Okay, so where are we? We've got Deeran and Ari on the list. And I think maybe Deeran is not here. Ari, are you here? Okay, well, I'm not seeing Ari in the chat. Um, and so I think I've reached the end of the list that I had. I'm probably down to go for maybe 10 more minutes. So let me just make sure I haven't missed anyone. So people I don't see anyone who, well, let's see. Bob requested a second reading, which I would maybe consider if nobody else who I haven't read for has a question, but I try to keep it to like one per person per live stream just to be fair. Because if I give one person two, then everybody else wants two. And um, I want to be as fair as I can. So if there's anyone else in the live stream that I haven't read for today who would like me to read for them, feel free to post a question in the chat. And if Diren or Ari shows up, I will read for them as well. And I'm just looking at what Mark is saying about this crazy guy who is supposedly trying to buy this bike. He agreed to the price. The two of them talked about removing paperwork in his name. Mark told him to give him the money. He gave him half the money. When Mark asked where the other half was, the guy said, "Let me keep it as a blessing for the sale." Yeah, that's crazy. Like he's just not going to pay for it. Sanja, yeah, you can ask because I haven't read for you today. Bob, if you want to ask that next time, I can do I'm open to reading just about any question as long as we are both on the same page regarding what we're doing here. But I also am inclined to agree with Sanja that of course she loves you, right? But I also understand that like you don't want to know what we think. You want to know like what the cards say. Okay, so Sanja wants to know, will in future be a mother? I am solo. Okay, so Sanja is single, Aquarius, and wants to know if one day she will be a mother. Okay. So the one thing about this is kind of a timing question. And so I tend to limit, right? Because you're asking about the future, right? You're asking about like one day in the future. And so I find that it's a little tricky with a question like this because you're really asking far into the future, right? And I generally only like to go like up to like 6 months in the future, which means like, if we put a 6-month timer on this, of course the answer is going to be no. So I wonder if we could, because if it's like, will this happen in the next 10 years? Well, that's so far out and there's so many variables that I'm not sure how that there'd be really any usefulness or accuracy towards it, if that makes sense. Um, because for all I know, in the next 10 years, aliens are going to land on planet Earth, and um, or there'll be there's just so much that can happen in 10 years. So I wonder if we could rephrase it like, what if we rephrased it like, what could you do now to best prepare for or make progress towards your one day becoming a mother, right? Assuming um, that you do want that, and I think you do, because why else would you ask the question, right? So I usually don't rephrase, or I try not to rephrase people's questions. But in this case, I feel like it warrants it. So if it's all right with you, let's ask, um, what steps could you take now, or what could you focus on now in order to best prepare yourself to be a mother in the future? Okay, so this is for Sanja. What could Sanja focus on, or steps could Sanja take to best prepare her for being a mother in the future? Here we go. First card. 9 of batons is the first card down. And so this makes me think like work hard. With batons, I think of building something, putting in effort. It can be like actually doing the work towards like a career, if you have a career, if you're working on one or something like that, or even studying with the idea of one day having a career. But it can also mean, I find that, with batons, we rarely build something alone. We tend to build with others. And so I think here of like um, building relationships, right? Not just romantic relationships, but um, building your ability to work well with others, right? Like get good at having relationships with other people, with having good relationship skills, like in a practical way, as opposed to like, your one true love kind of way. Another batons card comes up, this time the page. And so the page of batons is the explorer of the deck as I read this figure. And so this is suggesting like explore, figure out what it is that you want to create. Like figure out what your ambitions are or what your goals are, and take some time to learn about yourself and where it is you want to go, right? And what it is that you want to do. So, the thing about the pages is because they are figuring things out, they make mistakes, but they learn from those mistakes. And so if they never made the mistakes, they'd never learn. And so let yourself, within reason, when it's appropriate, like let yourself mess up sometimes. Let yourself make mistakes sometimes. Uh, don't seeing the page here makes me think like don't get too solidified yet in thinking that you understand what your life goals are. Keep exploring them. Okay. Last card down is the Emperor. And so it's interesting to see these two figures looking at each other because, um, the Emperor we can read in terms of like an aspect of your personality. It could also be some other person or group in your life. But the Emperor wants just plain old tradition and stability. The Emperor would conflict a bit with the Page of Batons in that the Emperor doesn't want you to explore. And so the Emperor could be someone else in your life. Like the first thing that comes to mind is a father figure, although it certainly would not have to be a father figure. It could even be a part of your own personality that says, no, don't explore, don't figure yourself out, don't discover what your real ambitions are through failure and mistakes and learning. Just be stable, go to work, earn money, get a husband or partner, whatever it might be, right? Have a kid. And so there is some conflict that comes up between these two, right? They're not fighting. They're like not at war with each other, but the Emperor part of your personality or people in your life is saying all that matters is stability. All that matters is that you have control over things, right? And that everything is safe and that there's no chaos, right? And also therefore I have to say very little chance for growth, okay? The Page part of your personality is saying, "But I wanna figure out if this works, and I wanna go over here, and I wanna try doing this thing, and I've never been to this city before, and wouldn't it be fun to just go off and maybe I don't have enough money to get back, but I'm just gonna do it anyways," right? Because is it a mistake? Yeah, but that's also how I'm gonna sort myself out. That's how I'm gonna figure out what I really care about, right? And and so these two will butt heads with one another. And so to take this back to your question of like how can you best prepare to be a mother in the future, I would think like um, remember what it feels like to be an explorer in the face of a world that doesn't want you to explore, right? That just wants you to be safe, right? Um, remember what it feels like to want to, and I'm saying this because pages can also represent children, right? And so, there's no child in the picture at the moment, as far as I can tell, right? But the cards seem to be saying, like, remember when you're like either remember back, depending on how old you are, right? Like if you are young, then remember what it feels like when you want to go off and explore and do something, and the world says, you can't do that. It's not safe. You can't do that. You have to go to work. You can't do that. How is that going to help you rise up in the world? Right. And you're saying, but I don't know what I even want to do in the world. And the only way I'm going to figure that out is by exploring. And the world just wants you to get on this track, and you get on this track and you stay on this track and you don't ever leave the path. This guy wants off the path, right? And so, uh, I think all kids, or maybe at least most kids, no, I think it's all, go through that, right? They have to explore, they have to mess up, they have to screw around, they have to find out. And so, maybe part of being a good parent is remembering when you felt like that too, right? Okay, yeah, rebel, exactly, yeah. And the thing too about this page is they from the emperor's perspective, they absolutely look like a rebel, right? Because the emperor's like, "Just follow the path and everything will be secure and safe." But from the page's perspective, I'm not even sure that they think they are a rebel. I think they're just, like, trying to figure out, "Well, but what if, like, what ambition can I follow that will, um, ignite a fire under me? Or, um, what can I start building in life that I'll truly will make me happy?" And the page doesn't know, and so tries to build a lot of different things and maybe abandons some of them or messes some of them up. And the emperor's like, "Just follow the blueprints I gave you. Why are you trying to reinvent the wheel?" And the page is like, "Because if I don't explore, if I don't test all of these different possibilities that life offers me, how do I know I'm following the right goal, you know?" Okay, cool. Those are fun cards. So let me look at my list. Diran and Ari, if either of you are here, I can do one last reading for you. Hi, my name is Will. I've been doing some free live tarot readings today. I am getting near the end of the live stream. I have a friend coming over in less than an hour, and I need to prepare for that. So I already said I'd read for Diran and Ari. So if they're here, I will read, but I've called their names a few times. So if they can't make it, that's fine. But if I don't hear from them pretty quick, then I'm going to wrap things up here. And Sanja, I hope that gives you some insight. There's definitely a feeling, I think, here of you put in the chat, like, let's see, how exactly did you phrase it? The modern you and the traditional you, for sure. This is the modern you, the page, and this is the traditional you, right? And there's a conflict between them. Uh, and I would just bring it back to the Nine of Batons, which can indicate taking a break. It can mean like you've put so much pressure in or effort into something due to pressure that you felt, and you're sort of at a limit with the 9. The 10 would be too much. The 10 would be uh, an excess. 9 is like you're at your limit. And so if you maybe are feeling at all like this pressure of tradition or pressure of needing to be secure and stable is so very strong that you're not sure you can handle anymore, um, I really would lean into this Page of Batons personality and try exploring something else, right? Um, and that doesn't actually relate to your question, I suppose, but we did talk about that. So okay, so I'm not seeing Diran and I'm not seeing Ari. So yes, let that stay in the future. Now is now. Yeah, and that is another way of reading it, right? Traditionally past, present, future. And so it's like present is be this Page of Batons. The emperor will always be there, right? So maybe you do a little exploring for yourself. Uh, and one way to think of it would be like, go exploring so that you will have good stories about your life to tell this child that you want to have when you become a mother someday, right? What do you want to tell them about that you did? And maybe now's the time to build those stories so that you'll have them ready when the time comes. Okay, so I think that's going to do it for today, folks. If I wasn't able to read for you, I know I didn't get to everyone, uh, but um, if I didn't get to read for you, I'd love to read for you again in the future. Thanks to all of you who offered your questions here today. I do really appreciate it. Thanks for your civility in the chat. And Mark, I'm glad you followed up. I really do appreciate you letting me know how that story with the bike sale turned off. I'm glad you walked away with the money. That was, I believe that was the right, because that guy was trying to manipulate you. Okay, well, that'll do it for today. Thanks, everyone, for your engagement and participation. Be well, take care of each other, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.